Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer, because if you've been practicing Ramana Maharshi's Atma Vichara, that famous who am I self-inquiry, and you're feeling totally frustrated, I'm here to tell you that you are absolutely not alone. It is so common to start this profound practice expecting instant peace, only to run smack into a brick wall of mental resistance. So today, we're going to act as your spiritual troubleshooting guide and break down exactly why this happens, and more importantly, how to push through it.
So the real crucial point we're tackling today is what happens when you try to quiet your mind to find your true self, but instead, it just gets louder, and honestly, way more chaotic. You sit down, you ask the question, and suddenly, you're remembering some awkward conversation from 5 years ago, or you're stressing about what to make for dinner. It kind of feels like a failure, right? But actually, it's an essential part of the process that we really need to understand.
We're treating this explainer like a literal troubleshooting manual. So we're going to cover the self-inquiry struggle, surviving the mind's hijack, facing fear of the void, the trap of mental dullness, and finally, the true meaning of observation. Let's get into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the self-inquiry struggle, demystifying the ego.
Let's just normalize the intense struggle you might be experiencing right now. A loud, sabotaging mind, a sudden panic-inducing fear, or slipping into a sleepy, blank trance. Listen, if you're hitting these roadblocks, congratulations. Now really, these aren't signs that you're failing. They're actually automated defense mechanisms from an ego that is completely terrified of its own dissolution. You're doing it right, which is exactly why the ego is throwing a tantrum. It knows that if you successfully trace that I back to its source, the illusion of the ego vanishes.
Moving right along to Section 2, surviving the mind's hijacked, moving past the intellect.
We have all been here. You sit down to practice and a thought arises. You do exactly what Ramana Maharshi advises and you ask, to whom did this arise? But then your mind instantly screams, to me. And before you can even process that, bam! The mind creates a whole new chain of thoughts just to keep you distracted. It's literally using the practice itself to keep you trapped in the intellect. This right here is the hijack.
But what's really fascinating here is that Ramana Maharshi points directly to the root of the I thought. When the mind screams, to me, that is not the end of your inquiry. It is the exact starting line. You've got to stop looking for a logical, intellectual answer. To me is just another thought, right? The trick is to use that me as a thread. When the mind says me, don't analyze it. Observe the actual feeling of that me. Where does the feeling of I originate in your being? You're moving past words and dropping into direct experience.
That brings us to Section 3, facing fear of the void, surviving the panic.
Now, we need to address that terrifying moment when the mind actually does start to quiet down, and instead of peace, you get panic. If you felt a sudden sense of dread or emptiness during inquiry, you might have just bolted right back to your noisy thoughts for comfort. It's a very strange paradox, isn't it? We practice Atma Vichara to find ultimate peace, yet when the mind actually begins to stop, we feel this rush of adrenaline. It's a profound fear of the unknown, almost like you're stepping off a cliff into total nothingness.
This panic is what we call the ego dissolution reaction. Think of it as a saboteur trying to scare you away from the ultimate treasure. So your ego is a construct of thoughts, memories, and identities. When those begin to fade in the light of true awareness, the ego feels like it's dying. But this fear is perfectly normal. By realizing it's just a biological and psychological defense mechanism, literally a false alarm, it takes all the power away from the panic. You don't need to fight the fear at all, just observe it and ask, to whom does this fear arise?
I absolutely love this perspective from the teachings, because it reminds us that true silence is not some scary black hole. When the ego looks at silence, it sees nothing, just because it can't find its usual noisy toys to play with. But from the perspective of pure awareness, that void is actually the most complete, magnificent, dynamic state of existence. It is the absolute fullness of your true self. If you can just breathe and relax into that initial fear, you will break through into profound peace.
Section 4 is the trap of mental dullness, true silence versus Laya.
Okay, so say you survived the panic. That brings us to an incredibly sneaky trap. It is absolutely critical to compare these two states, because sometimes we mistake pure exhaustion for enlightenment. True silence is razor sharp. It is a vibrant, electric presence where you are entirely anchored in the self. You're literally more awake than you have ever been. Mental dullness, or Laya, on the other hand, is when the mind just kind of zones out. You slip into a blank trance, maybe a pleasant numbness, or you straight up start nodding off. Remember,
Laya is just a temporary suppression of the mind, not the dissolution of it. Ramana Maharshi explicitly warned his students about this trap of wakeful sleep. If you find yourself drifting into this hazy, blank state, you're really just resting in a different layer of the mind. You have to actively reignite your sharp awareness. How? By bringing the inquiry back. Ask yourself, who is experiencing this dullness? Snap yourself back to that vivid, alert presence. Your practice should never feel like you're checking out. It should feel like you are intensely tuning in.
And finally, Section 5, the true meaning of observation, getting out of your head.
Let's demystify what it actually means to observe the observer, or as Ramana often called it, resting in the source. This is where the magic happens, guys. To truly practice these teachings, you have to get out of your head. Resting in the source is not an intellectual concept. You simply cannot think your way to the self. It's a tangible, felt sense of dropping into your own profound presence. It's kind of like relaxing a clenched muscle that you didn't even know you were flexing in the first place. You're shifting your attention from the content of your thoughts to the underlying screen of awareness where those thoughts are playing.
So how do we practically apply this? First off, drop the search for a logical answer. The mind wants a word. The self is an experience. Second, shift from thinking to feeling your pure existence, that foundational I am feeling before any other words get attached to it. Third, let go of the ego's automated reactions. When the panic or the dullness comes up, just watch them pass like clouds. And finally, integrate this felt sense into small daily moments. You don't need to be sitting in a cave in meditation. You can hold this vibrant, silent awareness while washing the dishes or walking to your car. By treating this as a practical, daily felt sense exercise, rather than some massive spiritual exam, you bypass the mind's roadblocks entirely.
I really want to leave you with this provocative thought to carry into your practice today. We've troubleshooted the mind's hijack, the terrifying illusion of the void, and the hazy trap of dullness. But when you finally step past all of those defenses, when the mental machinery truly stops spinning and you drop out of the intellect and into the pure, vibrant source of your being, who is actually left? Keep asking, keep feeling, and I promise you, the answer is way more profound than words could ever describe.